Good evening. Glad to see you all here tonight. Welcome some of you that are not normal attenders at Sovereign Grace Bible Church. We're delighted that you would join with us to hear the music of one of the masters. And the music is performed to the glory of God. It's an amazing thing how God has created us, and we view this type of appreciation. It's just a reflection of the master musician, our God himself, who created us in his image. So we get to kind of go along after him and replicate him to his glory. That's a wonderful thing. So we're going to hear great music tonight. And Sam's been with us before, and I'm not going to steal any of his time. So welcome, Sam Rotman.
Thank you. Well, it's good to be here again. I've been here probably at least 5 times or so over many years. Thank you, Pastor Confessi, a dear friend, and the church for having me again. Last time I was here, people told me it was all Beethoven. And it was all Beethoven because it was the 250th anniversary of the birth of Beethoven. And I gave 205 all Beethoven concerts all around the world. I remember that specifically of doing the all Beethoven. Tonight you're going to hear Chopin and some Debussy and Liadov and Chabrier, different composers. So you're getting roast beef, a salad, mashed potatoes, dessert. You're going to get, it's not all sirloin steak. That's Beethoven. So the program's about an hour and 15 minutes, and it's classical music. It's not hymn arrangements, gospel music. It's classical. I'm going to introduce the pieces, and then after a lot of music, I'm going to share how music is not the most important thing in my life, but Jesus Christ, how I came to know him when I was a student in New York City at the Juilliard School, the music school. And so let's begin. So I still have to play Beethoven, even though it's not all Beethoven. No, I play Beethoven at every concert, at least one piece, maybe 2, but he's my favorite composer. A unique thing of Beethoven, which I don't always share, is that Beethoven is the only composer that every note he wrote is still being performed today. There's no other person like that. Mozart wrote many, many pieces that are not heard. And Bach even, but Beethoven didn't consider the music was something sort of entertainment. It was the power of the human soul. People thought it was sort of the emperor was going to have a special delegation from another country, so he wanted some background music. Beethoven said, I don't write background music. I write the power of the human soul. And so this is an early work by Beethoven. So early Beethoven is very dramatic. He's really grabbing your throat. What I mean by that is that he's very intense. Nobody heard music this so intense or dramatic. It's in 4 parts. The first part is lively. The second part is slow, beautiful, slow movement. The third part is a little dance. And the fourth is very fast, very intense. So this is what they call to early Beethoven, his period of tremendous drama, intensity, passion by Beethoven. Wow, thank you. Wow, you're very enthusiastic. Wow. I'll play till midnight. No, no, that's not good. By the way, good to see young people here, future pianists. Good for you. Good for you. Well, next I'm going to play you two pieces by Chopin. So there's something unique about Chopin. Oh, something unique, yes. Chopin is the only composer who wrote just for the piano. So Beethoven wrote for orchestras, he wrote for violin, he wrote for voice, he wrote for cello, but Chopin just wrote piano music. So if you're going to play the piano, you better like Chopin. I've never met a pianist who didn't like Chopin. I love Chopin. So Chopin was Polish, lived most of his life in Paris because that became the center of classical music. And Poland was going through a struggle for their independence from Prussia, not Russia, but Prussia. Prussia was a combination of Bavaria and Germany and these other countries, the Prussians. And they were in a struggle. And so Chopin, being in France and wanting to be in Poland and the struggle of the Polish people, wrote these two pieces called the Tragic and the Military Polonaise. So the first is very sad, tragic, because of the suffering of the Polish people. And then the military, I almost kind of identify more as nationalistic, very energetic, very patriotic sounding, is the military Polonaise. At one point in the second Polonaise, you can listen to this, the young people, and you as well, there's drum rolls. So this was to rally up the imagery of the struggle for the Polish people. Now, a Polonaise is a national dance of Poland. That's why it has the name in it, Polonaise, Poland. And it has a unique rhythm. The rhythm is bum, 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 bum. Chopin wrote about 13 of these Polonaises. You'll hear it slightly, you have to listen to it, be very aware of it more as a musician in the first one, but you'll hear it more obviously in the second one. Bum, 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 bum. So Chopin wrote these two pieces within 24 hours of each other, and he published them at the same time. Now, it's interesting about publishing music. When composers published music, it was under what's called an opus numbering system, OPUS. It's a Latin word which means work. And then you have a number. So if you publish your first piece, it's opus 1. Then a month later, if you publish another piece, it's opus 2. So if you have opus 100 and you have opus 40 by the same composer, 40 was written many years probably before 100 because it's so much of a lower number. When Chopin wrote this, he published them as opus 40 number 1 and 2. He didn't give one opus 40 and the other one opus 41. He wanted them, they were written together, to be played together, and to be published together. That's very unique to have multiple numbers in an opus system as opposed to just going on with the numbering system individually. So this is the Tragic and the Military Polonaise by Chopin. Thank you. Thank you. I turned 75 last month, and playing that piece is like going to the gym for 2 hours. It was a lot easier when I was 55. That is an intense work. It is. It really is. Chopin doesn't let up at all in that enthusiastic Polonaise. So next I'm going to play you two pieces by Debussy, French composer. I know I played the first one. Someone actually mentioned it if I was going to play it again. So I thought, well, would you like to hear it? And oh, yeah. It's a very great piece that Debussy wrote called The Sunken Cathedral. It's based on a French poem. And so there's a story to every piece that Debussy wrote. You're on the coast of France. It's very foggy. I was in France about 6 weeks ago. And after 30 seconds, you're going to hear 3 soft bells. So you can think of that. 30 seconds, these 3 bells. The water starts moving, the bells get louder. The water moves, the bells get louder. And then out of the water comes this gigantic, Gothic European cathedral. Now, you know, in Europe, if you've been there, you know, it took them 200 years to build churches. It's this massive edifice of God to worship, and you'll know when it happens. You'll know when this cathedral comes up. The piano will start rising off the floor. The water starts moving again, and then the whole cathedral sinks back into the water. That's why it's called the Sunken Cathedral. The titles are in French, so the title actually is La Cathédrale, which is the word for cathedral in French, La Cathédrale engloutie, engulfed. The engulfed cathedral. We translate it sunken. So you'll hear the whole thing sinking down. The fog returns that you heard in the beginning, gets very foggy again, and you hear 2 soft bells, and the piece ends. I think it's one of the great pieces of the 20th century. It's absolutely staggering to me. The second piece by Debussy, all you need to know is that it's about a juggler. There was a man named Edward Levine who was advertised as the world's greatest juggler. This is 1905. He came and performed in Paris, in the Champs-Élysées Theater, and Debussy saw him perform, and he was so enamored with this man's ability and his antics that he wrote this piece. This piece is about this American juggler. It starts off with a trumpet call, ba-ba-ba-bum, 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 and then there's a break, and then this man walks out on stage, almost kind of sheepishly, and he's juggling, and he throws a pin way up in the air. He actually Debussy writes a sour note. It sounds like a mistake, because he said the audience gasped. But as the pin came down, he grabbed it because he was the world's greatest juggler. He acted like he didn't know what to do, but that was part of his act. It's a very funny piece. It's humorous. It's comical. You can see him bouncing around, and then people are in awe. And there's some jazz in this piece because when he came to Paris, he brought a jazz band from New Orleans. So there's jazz because that was Debussy remembers his entertaining background music. Debussy wrote in his diary, actually, that the French people laughed at the antics, roared with laughter at the antics of Mr. Levine, but were truly in awe of him as he is the world's greatest juggler. Isn't that a great quote? They laughed at him, he was so comical, but boy, no doubt about it, this guy was the greatest juggler I've ever seen. So the two pieces, the Sunken Cathedral, and then the General Levine, the juggler by great composer Claude Debussy. Thank you. I hope you see the cathedral going up and coming down. Yes. So next I'm going to play you two pieces that I call gems. So during COVID, I had, in the year 2020, I had 54 concerts all postponed because of COVID. So I said, well, instead of canceling it, why don't we just do it a year later? So of those 54 concerts, I did 49 of them. So what did I do during COVID? I practiced a lot. I learned a lot of new music, and I found a lot of new music, and these are two of the pieces I found. I never knew these two pieces existed, and I call them my gems. The gem is not in the title, it's just what I think of them. So the first piece is by a Russian composer named Lyadov. He's not very well known. He's not famous like Tchaikovsky or Rachmaninoff. He's Russian. And this piece is called The Music Box. Now, you know what a music box is? A little thing, you wind it up and it tinkles and you have a little ballerina, right? Right? And what happens at the end of the music box? It unwinds, right? It gets slower and slower. And I'm telling you, you got to listen to this piece. It is a gem. The way he writes out, this composer, he writes out how this music box unwinds is magical. In fact, you know, I try not to breathe while I'm playing this part because it's so incredible. The second piece is by a French composer named Chabrier, not as famous as Debussy, and it's called A French Dance. I never knew this piece, but it's very exuberant. I like to play this after the delicate music box because this is really exuberant and boisterous, and it's just fun. It's just great. So these are the two gems. Listen to it. Listen to the music box unwinding, and then the French Dance by Chabrier. you. Well, could you hear that end of the music box? You know, it's amazing how he writes it out. And sometimes in some concerts, since COVID, I've been playing it, not on every concert, but some people come to me and say, oh, my favorite piece was the music box. 9 out of 10 people, I mean, you mean I played a 5,000-note Beethoven piece, and you take a 300-note music box, and that was your... Yeah, I mean, it's a magical piece. It's just amazing how it sounds. Well, before I play the last piece, I'd like to take a few minutes, as I do in my other concerts, share about myself. And my story really begins with my parents. My father was born in Eastern Europe, in Romania, in 1905. My mother was born in Eastern Europe. At that time, the country was called Czechoslovakia, and she was born there in 1915. So my parents were 10 years difference in age. And they were both very religious Orthodox Jews. So the Orthodox Jews are the strictest Jews that adhere to the Jewish faith. They want to follow all the laws that God gave to the Jewish people through Moses in what we refer to as the Torah. The Torah are the first 5 books of Moses. Jewish theology, Jewish practice comes from the Torah. That's what's in every synagogue, in there, in the scrolls, in the covenant, in the ark, is the Torah. And my parents left Europe in 1940 because of one person, and his name was Adolf Hitler. My father was 35, my mother was 25. They would have been sent to a concentration camp and immediately killed, or sent to a labor camp, and many people don't know that if you went to a labor camp where they worked you 18 hours a day, once you got sick, they killed you because there was no time for you to get well. So like a lot of Jews, my parents had to get out of Europe. Everybody that stayed in their town ended up perishing. If you didn't leave, it was a death knell. 11 months after my father left Romania, the Nazis came to his town. They came to his house. They killed his parents right there in the house, my grandparents, and took a sister to a concentration camp and never heard from again. So like a lot of Jews, they had to get out of Europe, and like a lot of Jews, many of them ended up in South America. There were some countries that had heard what was happening to Jews, and so they allowed, if a Jew got to their country, they would allow them to come in. And one of the countries was a small country right on the equator called Ecuador. And from 1940 to 1950, my parents lived in Quito, Ecuador, the capital. My brother was born there, my sister was born there. In the spring of 1950, my mother was pregnant with me, and so this is years after the war. And my father then wanted to bring his whole family to the United States. He filled out all this paperwork, he got permission, they came through New York City, and I was born 5 months later in October of 1950. And I was raised, as you can imagine, in a very, very religious Jewish home. My grandparents died for being Jewish, my parents suffered for being Jewish, and I was instilled with all the Jewish heritage. My parents sent me to public school, and then after school, I went to school in the synagogue from 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock every day, 5 days a week for 8 years. And it was called Hebrew school because you speak Hebrew. If you go to Israel, the Old Testament's written in Hebrew. So I learned Hebrew going to Hebrew school. I learned all about being Jewish. I learned literally hundreds of prayers. And as I mentioned, I went to Hebrew school 5 days a week for 8 years. I started when I was 8 years old until I was 16. So all those years of growing up, this was very important to me, very important. I don't say this for you to laugh, but if you took this decision to make this track in Hebrew school, this was not a 2-week course on how to be a better Jew. If you did this, this was a commitment for your life, a commitment for your life. All my friends were Jewish. All my relatives were Jewish. I'd wake up in the morning, I'd pray for a half an hour in Hebrew, and then I went to school, and something unusual happened. I was 12 years old. I began to realize, and again, I don't say this to be funny because it was not funny. I began to realize that I was developing a very foul mouth. I could curse very easily. I could lie to my teachers, not a lot, but enough. I could lie to my parents, not a lot, but enough. I was very religious in the synagogue, and these prayers meant a lot to me. And I realized it was easy to be religious And then an hour later, I'm swearing and cursing and lying, and that was easy. It was easy for me to be religious when I had to, and easy for me to be irreligious or a sinner when I wanted to. I was good at both. Sad. Then when I was 17, I was accepted in the music school in New York City, a famous school called the Juilliard School. I was there for 5 years and got a bachelor's and a master's in piano. And there I met 3 students who called themselves born-again Christians. Well, I never heard that term in my whole life. I had no idea what they were talking about. I had no idea what that meant. But there was something about these students. I'd see one of them having lunch in the cafeteria by himself. I saw another one taking a break from practicing. And every time I saw them individually doing things, or like I say, a break, they were always reading the Bible. The Bible. I mean, this is not a school of religion. It's a school of music. And these were Juilliard students. I mean, these were musicians, and they were highly respected in the school. And every time they got together, all they did was talk about Jesus. Jesus did this, and Jesus said this. And why did Jesus do this? What did he mean when he did this? Why did Jesus say this? What did he mean when... They never mentioned church. I had no idea about a church. They never mentioned the C word, Christianity. It was always Jesus, 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 Jesus. I mean, it was... And in Hebrew, of course, his name is Yeshua. Well, they heard I was a religious Jew, and they basically asked me 2 questions. They asked me if I ever read the New Testament. And I told them, nope, not a word. I was told the New Testament was not a Jewish book. It wasn't for the Jews. You would never find a New Testament in our home. I had no idea what was in it. I never read one, saw one, touched one. I mean, zero knowledge. I had no concept of anything in this book. They asked me if I thought if Jesus could be the Messiah. The Jews are waiting for the Messiah. In Hebrew, it's called Mashiach. And I said, no, Jesus is not the salvation for Jewish people. But you know, I was very moral. My parents literally almost died for me. They really did some sacrifices. And I didn't want to shame them. So I never drank alcohol. To this day, I still don't know what a beer tastes like. So I've never been drunk. And my thinking was this: if I don't drink, I won't get drunk. And if I don't get drunk, I won't do something stupid and shame my parents. That was my logic. Now, some of you relate to this. I lived in New York City, Midtown Manhattan, or actually Uptown Manhattan, from 1968 to 1973. That was the height of the Vietnam War, and that was the height of this group called the hippies. Remember the hippies? This was all about all the drugs you want, all the sex you want, and you'll find happiness. Well, I'll tell you this. I lived at 71st Street and Broadway, that's Uptown Manhattan, and I can tell you that in the late 60s and early 70s, there were drugs everywhere. I mean, everywhere. On any corner, every corner of an innocent, there were drugs if you wanted drugs. It's not what drugs you wanted, how much drugs you wanted. Never took it. And my thinking was, if I don't take drugs, I won't lose something mentally, lose my mind, and do something stupid and shame my parents. Never had sex before marriage. So even though I was so moral on the outside, no sex, no drugs, no drinking, my friend, I'm going to tell you, I was very, very, very immoral. Immoral. You know where? Right here. Listen to me carefully. I knew that I was not on the inside the way I could appear on the outside. I could do many, many Jewish things, but it never affected me on the inside. I was very moral. I was very religious, but I was not changed. I was the same foul-mouthed, dirty-minded, self-centered, egotistical person at 20 years old, 18 years old, 16, 14. Nothing changed about me except I was getting older, at that age even. The same sins, the same problems, the same issues, the same character flaws, the same thing. So I made a big decision. I said, well, if I want to know about this person, Jesus Christ, I'm going to read this book, the New Testament. And let me tell you something. That was a big step for a Jew to read this book, the New Testament. But I didn't want to talk to a rabbi or a priest or a minister. No one's going to tell me what I'm reading. I'm going to read this book myself. Now, when I was a student at Juilliard, I used to practice for 10 hours a day. Now, that's not a lie, and that's not an exaggeration. I did not sit at the piano for 9 hours and 45 minutes. I sat every day at Juilliard for 10 hours a day. I never left the school until I practiced for 10 hours a day. And when I started to read this book, the New Testament, my whole life came to a stop. I was absolutely shocked when I read this book. For the first time in my life since I started piano as a little boy, I completely stopped practicing. These friends gave me a little pocket New Testament. You know, I didn't ask, but they found one or got one, and they gave, fits in your shirt pocket. They said, well, Sam, if you read this book, start in this book called The Gospel of John. Never heard of it. So I took the book, I looked at it, I opened it up, and sure enough, there it was, The Gospel of John. Now I'm going to tell you what I read. I'm going to quote to you what I read in this book. Here was a person, Jesus, who said of himself, I am the light of the world. Really? You know, the first thing that came in my mind as a religious Jew, an Orthodox Jew, was that the first book of the Bible, which is called in Hebrew Bereshis, the beginning, God said, let there be light. And every Jew is taught that God is light. Every synagogue has an eternal light that is always on. Now, God is not the light. It's the reality of God who is light. Every Jewish holiday, every Sabbath, every Friday night, every Passover starts with the lighting of a candle. Why? Because it's the symbol of the Almighty, the reality of the light. And now Jesus comes along and says, by the way, I'm the light. Here was a man, Jesus, who said of himself, I am the bread of life. In this book. Here's a man, Jesus, who said, if you have the Son of God, you have life. If you don't have the Son of God, you don't have life. What? Jesus said, I am the vine, you are the branches. Without me, you can do nothing. No. Without God, I can do nothing. No, Sam, listen. Without me, you can do nothing. Sam, you want to know God? You want to serve God? You want to please God? You obey me. You know me. You please me. You believe in God, Jesus said, believe also in me. The same adoration you give to the Almighty Elohim, Adonai, El Shaddai, the names of God. The same adoration you give to Almighty God, you give to me. No different. You give to me. Well, again, let me tell you, this was traumatic. I had no idea. And I said, this man is crazy. You know Moses. You know Moses to the Jews? Moses never said he was the light of the world. Abraham never said he was the light of the world. Every Jewish prayer begins with Abraham. He never said he was the bread of life. I said, this man is crazy. This man's a lunatic. This man is an egomaniac. And I was going to throw away the book. I remember the garbage can. I'm going to go practice. And at that second, I said to myself, Sam, if this person Jesus is who he says he is, let me repeat that again. If this person Jesus is who he says he is. Everybody has an opinion about Jesus. Why don't you let Jesus tell you who's Jesus? Jesus, who are you? You want to know who I am, Sam? I'm the light of the world. Sam, and if you don't believe it, I'm still the light of the world. And if nobody believed it, I'm still the light of the world. If this person is who he says he is, I may be making the biggest mistake of my life throwing this book away. I better listen to him. And then Jesus said he came for sinners. I was not a sinner. I was very moral. I was very religious. I spent my whole life looking good for God. I was on God's side. But Jesus said he came to bring forgiveness, and he said he came to change us on the inside. You know what he called it? A new heart, a new birth, and a new life. A spiritual birth, a spiritual heart, and a spiritual life. So, I've played concerts in 62 different countries. You name a country, I've probably been there. I think I've played in every country in Asia except North Korea. I played all over Europe. I've been to parts of Africa. I've been all over South America. I've been to Cuba. I was invited to go and do concerts. I gave 28 concerts in communist Cuba. I went to Cuba when you couldn't get to Cuba. I had to go through Mexico. And you know why? Because I play classical music. They wanted for the people to hear the culture of classical music. And the agreement was I do my concert, and I'm allowed to tell my story about my faith in Jesus Christ. And they agreed, as long as I did it in the hall, in the concert, and not on the outside. And let me tell you what I've learned. 62 countries. My friend, I don't care if your skin color is green or blue or black or white. I don't care if you're a Democrat, Republican, Independent, Communist Party, Socialist Party, Labor Party. I don't care what language you speak. I don't care what culture you're from, because this is the reality in the world. The reality in the world is that every person in this world is good at hiding things. Everybody, 8 billion people, and everybody in this room, we're all good at hiding things. You know what's the first thing man did when he disobeyed God? He hid. He hid. And God had to say, where are you? You can hide things from your husband. You can hide things from your wife. You can hide things from your parents. You can hide things from a friend. You can hide things from someone at work. But let me tell you something. Nobody hides anything from this Jesus. In fact, it says that he will disclose everything we've ever done and reveal the motive of our hearts. And even though I was so moral and so religious, please listen to me carefully, I thought I was crafty enough with my tongue and I was clever enough with my mind that I thought I could hide things from people and God. And on May 21st, 1971, 54 years ago, for the first time I acknowledged and prayed to Jesus Christ. And I'm going to tell you what I said. My name is Sam Rotman. My name is Sam Rotman. And Jesus, I want you to take over my life. It's very simple. I want you to tell me what to do, and I will not tell you what to do. I told him the lies I said. I told him the immoral thoughts I had. I told him the curse words I said. I hid nothing from Jesus. You know something? You don't need to hide anything from Jesus because you're not hiding anything. And get this, I made no excuses. You know that you can come to the person of Jesus Christ and you don't need to give him an excuse for anything you've ever done in your life. In fact, if you give him an excuse, you're complicating it. You're complicating it. You don't need an excuse. You need to tell him and start a new life. It was a long prayer. I finished praying. I opened up my eyes. And in a billionth of a second, that quick, immediately, I knew that Jesus Christ had completely transformed me on the inside. I had a dirty, filthy mouth, and instantly he cleaned it and changed it that night, 54 years ago. I'm telling you, I was shocked I stopped cursing. And I remember minutes later, I couldn't form a curse word with my lips if I wanted to. I had a dirty, filthy mind, and he cleaned it and changed it. And I thanked him and thanked him and thanked him. And the next morning, I couldn't wait to get to Juilliard when it opened up. And I went to every practice room of every Jewish friend of mine, and I told them, I've been transformed by the Messiah, and his name is Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus the Christ. I've played now over 3,400 concerts. That's a lot of concerts. And I can tell you that all of my concerts are nothing. Nothing. You know how much nothing is? That's my concerts of 3,400. Nothing compared to having Jesus Christ. The greatest thing I ever did in my life, the most important thing I ever did in my life, was to give my life to Jesus Christ. Music's not the most important thing in my life. Jesus is, because listen, my friend, only Jesus Christ can transform your heart. Listen, your wife can't change you. Your husband can't change you. Your parents can't change you. Your children can't change you. The church cannot change you. The government cannot change you. And can I tell you something? You cannot change you. You know who the hardest person to live with is? Yourself. But this is the miracle in the world. I'm done here in 3 minutes. The miracle in the world, the reality in the world is everyone's good at hiding things. The miracle in the world is that Jesus Christ actually transforms a human heart. That's mind-boggling. Mind-boggling. And he's done it to hundreds and hundreds of millions of people in 2,000 years, and I'm one of them, little me. I'm one. You know why I was Jewish? I was born Jewish. That's why I was Jewish. If I was born in Egypt, I would be a Muslim, and you would too. Or if I was born in India, where I've done many concerts, I'd be a Hindu. You'd be a Hindu. Or in Thailand, a Buddhist. You realize that 99% of the world is born into a religion. Why are you a Muslim? Why are you Jewish? Why are you a Mormon? Why are you Catholic? You were born into it. That's right. You were physically born into a religion. That's why you need a second birth. You need to be born a second time spiritually to Jesus Christ. Can I tell you something? You know what's the first thing you'll see in every synagogue? Any synagogue in the world, Reformed, Orthodox, Conservative, in any culture, in any country of the world, you'll always see the same thing. You know what it is? The 10 Commandments. Every synagogue, you'll always see the law, the 2 tablets, the law that God gave to the Jewish people and to the world. You know what's the first thing you see when you walk into a church? You know what I call it? Forgiveness. I know it's called a cross. Forgiveness. Imagine the first thing you see in a synagogue is the 10 God's law. The first thing you hear. And when you see that cross, when you drive and you see a cross on a church, you speak to somebody and they're wearing a cross, God's telling you, I've made a way to forgive you. Why don't you come to me and be forgiven and start a whole new life? Salvation is not what you will ever do for Jesus Christ. Salvation is everything that Jesus Christ has done for you. And I play the piano for him. He gave me the ears to hear the music, fingers to play the music, mind to learn the music, the heart to love the music. You know that Jesus has never missed one of my concerts. You know that? 2 people have never missed my concerts, Jesus and me. I know it's very cute, but it's very real. This is very real. And every time I give a concert in a church, a big hall in Europe, with an orchestra, he's in the front row, and every time I sit down to play, he always says the same thing to me. He says, Sam, I'm really looking forward to hearing you play for me tonight. If I could look into each of your eyes, each one of you, each one of you, each one of you, I was 3 inches in front of your nose, I would tell you with every fiber of my being, my friend, it is worth living for Jesus Christ. Listen, it is worth living for Jesus Christ. He's not a joke. He's not a curse word. He's not hocus pocus magic. He's not even a nice Christmas story. He is the life and the light of life. Don't let anything become an excuse to keep you from the amazing life there is in Jesus Christ. Let me tell you something. My family for millennium were Orthodox Jews. I had a million excuses. Your past can disappoint you. People can disappoint you. They're not worth it. He's worth it. And you can say like I did. Tell him your name. Where you're sitting tonight. You lie in bed. Tell him your name. My name is Jesus. My name is, and I want you to take over my life. And he will. And I want you to forgive me. And he will. And I want you to be with me and help me and guide me. And he will, and he will, and he will. And you do that, my friend, you'll experience the transformation of your soul. Music gives me a lot of happiness, but not one note of music will ever change me. I'll play 40,000 notes tonight. I'm literally 40,000 notes I'll play. Not one note will change me. Jesus changed me, gave me a new life, my friend. It's worth living for him. Last piece, Beethoven. Short piece, but you've all heard this piece. It's a famous piece that he wrote called the Turkish March. And you'll hear this march at the beginning, and it's very famous. And then Beethoven wrote these 6 little variations, and each variation is a development of this march. And then at the end, you'll hear the march again. So this is the final piece, the theme and march, and 6 variations, and march, the Turkish March by Beethoven. Thank you. Thank you for a minute. Just before the pastor comes up, anybody have a question like to ask me about my life, my music, sometimes in a smaller, intimate group? Any question about anything you'd like to know? My life, my music, my social security number, my... Yes, ma'am. How did my family respond? That's always the first or second question. So I went and shared with my parents. I knew it'd be very, very difficult, especially for my father. His parents died because they were Jewish, and now I believe in this Jesus. So my father asked me to leave the house. He said 3 things to me. You're no longer my son. I never want to hear from you. And as far as I'm concerned, you're dead. I knew it'd be difficult. I didn't know to what extent, but... So I didn't hear from my parents for a number of years. I mean, I was a student at Juilliard. I got married. My wife's a believer. We've been married 52 years. They did not come to the wedding. We have 3 children. I wanted them to enjoy the children. I was not going to say anything. I knew if I said anything, it would be aggravating them. It would make it worse. But it was too difficult for my father. My children saw their grandparents maybe 3 times in 25 years. It was sad. In 1995, my father was 89, almost 90, and he became ill. He was born in 1905, so this is 1995. And I wanted to visit him in the hospital, and he refused to see me. He died 4 days later, and he did not want me at the funeral, which I respected. My mother then, 2 things about my mother. My mother loved classical music. I'm in classical music because of my mother. I'm in classical music because of my mother. And my mother, all of her family escaped the Nazis, the opposite of my father. He lost his family. My mother's family escaped. My mother wanted to reach out to me, but it was too difficult for my father. So with my passing of my mother, I had a great relationship with my mother. She loved my wife, loved her 3 kids. I live in Mesa. My mother lived in Scottsdale. So if you know anything, the Jews live in Scottsdale. In fact, in fact, I'll tell you something. You may not know this. One of the most famous Jews alive today spent 9 years of his life growing up in Scottsdale. You know who it was? Steven Spielberg. Steven Spielberg, from the age of 8 to 17, lived his whole life. His early movies are in Papago Park that he made of people in Scottsdale. So I began to share with my mother. Every 6 months I played a concert for my mother. I saw her a lot. She saw my family. And I began to talk to her. She went to synagogue every Sabbath, and I said, what did the rabbi talk about to talk? I began to read to her the New Testament, and this is from 1995. And finally, on February the 12th, 2007, 12 years later, my 91-year-old mother came to faith in the Lord Jesus Christ and was transformed. It was tremendous. February the 12th, it's worth living for Jesus Christ. 91 years old. And she's gone to be with the Lord, and I spoke at her funeral. And I said, Mother, you're now in the bosom of Father Abraham. You know, that's what Jesus says to Matthew, written to Jews. I knew it'd be difficult for my father. I knew it'd be very painful. And it was very difficult. Difficult for me. I had the Lord. But praise God, the salvation of my mother. I prayed 36 years for my mother. 36 years, yeah. Anyone else? A question? Yeah. Oh, yes, sir. Young man. Good for you.
How many pieces have you memorized?
I have learned over 1,100 pieces. That's a lot of music. And look what it did to me. I put in all those notes, and the hair said, there's not room for both of us. And yeah, that's a lot of music. Someone once said to me, actually, when they heard how much music I learned, they said, that's quite a hard drive. And I guess your computer, the hard drive, stores all this, yeah. So, and you know, I learned a lot of new music during COVID, you know, because I had no concerts and I was practicing a lot and learned some tremendous music. And yeah, a question, yes, sir.
And how old were you when you started? And
So I was 9 years old. So my mother, this is interesting. My mother took me to concerts when I was a little boy, 6 years old, 7 years old. She loved classical music, and she wanted me to enjoy it. I mean, I heard orchestras, I heard violinists, you know, but we were not well off. You know, they came in 1950. I was 1956. My parents didn't know English. There was no ESL at the time, English. You know, my father, he worked hard, but he never earned more than $6,000 a year. But he worked hard as a Jewish peddler and stuff. So my father thought it'd be a way, they didn't have the money, would be a way. So finally my mother convinced him to let him start when I was 9. So I was 9. When I was 11, I wanted to be a concert pianist. That was that was monumental to me. My wife says it's unusual for an 11-year-old to really know what they want to do. Well, I did that. And now I began to practice 2 hours and 3 hours. And when I started, I was not like a genius. I just realized the more I practiced, the better I got. So you have a gift, but you have to develop it. You know, when I'm working on pieces, I still practice 7 hours a day. Just because you're a Christian, it doesn't mean you play the piano well. You got to practice. You know, you got to practice. You know, I can't not practice and say, Lord, help me. Good luck. Go ahead. You know, why didn't you practice? You know, I'll help you. You know, not to say that he won't help me or can help me. But no. So I just learned that principle of practicing, focusing, concentrating, and things like that. So that's how it developed. 9 years old, I started. 11, I wanted to be a pianist. When I was 16, I won a very big competition, played with a big orchestra in front of 6,000 people. It was very big. Then accepted at Juilliard. They heard 2,000 pianists, accepted 18. And now 10 hours a day. From the first day at Juilliard. The first day of my freshman day, fall semester Juilliard, I said, I'm going to practice 10 hours a day. Thank the Lord I did that and not as a senior, you know. Someone else? Any questions? Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, I think,
It's on.
can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
I want to ask a philosophical question, maybe.
Sure.
So, you know, in music and art, you have these different periods, you know, from Bach, you know, up
Baroque
to, you
period,
know,
classical, romantic, contemporary,
Exactly.
impressionistic, yes.
Yes, and then so, you know, you have this beautiful music, you know, 19th century, you know, Tchaikovsky, Rachmaninoff,
right.
and then you get into the 20th century, and
Right.
you did play a little bit there.
Yeah.
But has it followed, you know, if you look at like modern art and you go to a modern art museum.
Yeah, it's
you
junk.
know, it's junk.
It's
Is
junk.
it,
Yeah.
you know, is anybody making good music anymore?
No
guys?
more.
And what-
Nobody's
wh-
writing anything.
Why do you
No
think
one
that
is writing.
is?
Well, I can go into I don't want to go into too much, you know, but let me just say this. In Acts chapter 16, there's a very strategic moment. Paul wanted to go east to Asia, and the Holy Spirit said no. Second time. He wanted to go east. No. And then he heard the call from Macedonia. And I've been to Kosovo and Serbia. That's in the former Yugoslavia. North of Greece is Macedonia. He went to the west. The gospel did not go east. I mean, permeating the east. It went west. And look at the different culture. Look at the difference of art and music and life and development of Western culture. You know why that happened? The gospel. The gospel. Where the gospel goes, it gives man a purpose. Now he knows who. And Bach wrote, every time he wrote a work, it said, Soli Deo Gloria. They asked Beethoven, where do you get the music in your mind? This is a quote from his letter. The music in my mind has been given to me by the Almighty God, and I'm putting it down on paper for him. Everybody had a consciousness of the divine. Now, I'm not saying they were all born again. I'm not saying they were all strong believers, but there was a consciousness of the Almighty, the gift that I have. If you come to Christ, you'll be a better father. You'll be a better plumber. You understand? And as we have now gone from post-Christianity, no one's writing anything. There's nothing being written today, no art today, poet, no, it's gone. This music will never be created again. The power of this music, the creativity of this music, and it happened because of the gospel.
Amen.
The gospel. Nothing. So I don't play modern music. I don't play any modern music. No, it's junk. It's noise. They're trying to be clever. It's not creative. And it's because I believe we have lost the knowledge of I create, God has given me the ability, you know what I mean? God, we create because God created. We're made in his image. And as we become more and more alienated from God, we become more and more unable to create and the gift and to develop it and to, yeah, nothing's being written today. Nothing, nothing, nothing. Yes.
How many countries have you visited?
I've played concerts in 62 different countries. I've been to 70 countries, but concerts in 62 different, and some countries I've been to 25 times. I mean, some countries I've been to a lot, like France and Germany, and countries in Europe I've been to a lot. So, yep, 60. Okay, any other question? I don't want to, okay, back there, yes, sir.
Had the opportunity to meet or get to know other concert pianists that are born again.
Other concert pianists?
Yes, that are born again. That you know,
Oh,
profess the
that are
name of
born
Jesus.
again.
Yes.
Yeah,
in all your
yeah.
travels.
I do know. Let me say. Yes, you mean as classical musicians? Oh yes, oh yeah. They're not all pianists. I mean, there is a couple that are believers. I know more some violinists, some cellists, some singers. You know, this is. Let me just say this. I want to say this very guardedly. There are a lot of musicians out there that are very, very talented and very good. And they may claim that they are believers in Jesus Christ, but it's not evident in their life. It's not evident in their life. There are many people who are believers in Jesus Christ, who are believers in Jesus Christ, and it's evident in their life. But their music is not as it ought to be. In other words, you know, they would not have a career. They would not be significant careers. So the point is, I'm being very careful what I say here. And that is, there are people who know Jesus Christ and have a great talent, but they're very rare. There are some people who are great talents, but they stay there, they know the Lord, but they do not, from their life, from what they talk to me about. There's people who do know the Lord, they're sincere, but they didn't practice 10 hours a day, they practice an hour a day, and they think that they can get away with just being mediocre, and the world would laugh at them. You understand what I'm saying? I'll just say this very guardedly. I've played a lot of concerts in some very prestigious halls. Juilliard and the Juilliard School in Spain, the most prestigious concert hall. And the director was hesitant to have me. He didn't think that they should have me. But they finally said, okay, we'll have him. And I gave a concert. And the director was there. No, these are not Christians, by the way. The teachers are not Christians. This is a secular Juilliard of Spain. Very professional. And I finished the concert. It was very successful. The Lord was very gracious. I played very high level. I gave a strong testimony. I gave my testimony. And a man who was a believer talked to the director, and he said, how did you like the concert? It was tremendous. Wow, it was great. What did you think of the story he gave about his life? He said, if you can play the piano like that, you've earned the right to tell me what is the most important thing in your life. If you can play the piano like that, you've earned the right to tell me what is the most important thing in your life. The man was totally unoffended. It disarmed him, and he received it. And, you know, in Ireland, this happened a couple of times in Ireland, and I'm known as the Jesus pianist in Ireland. Not because I play Jesus music, but because they know if you have Sam Rotman, you're going to hear about Jesus, but you should have Sam Rotman. You see what I'm trying to say? You understand what I'm saying by that? So I'm just saying is that the balance of really living the life for Christ and really being accepted as a true concert pianist that really is, you're serious about this. There's no phony baloney here. That's what I strive for. That's what I strive for. To earn the right to tell you what is the most important thing. I say this very humbly. I say it very guardedly, but I say it very thankfully to the Lord Jesus Christ, because He knows that that's my heart. I hope I don't offend you by saying that, but sharing that. Yeah. Someone else? Okay.
Amen.
Yeah. Here's a young man. Yes, sir. No. Wait. Oh, 1 second. Yeah. Go ahead.
Do you still keep up with the three?
Oh, absolutely. First of all, the next day, I told them I came to faith. I was so excited. And you know what I said, what do I do now? Get this. What do I do now? And they said, come to church with us. I said, okay. I remember my fist going, okay. So I was, the next Sunday, this was a Thursday night, Friday morning that I got saved. It was after midnight, so that's why it was May 24th, Friday, but it was Thursday night when I was in turmoil about this. The next Sunday, I was at Trinity Baptist Church, a Reformed Baptist church where this man, Pastor Al Martin, these men were going to this church. And that's where that was my first experience. I mean, I went to synagogue on Sabbath. This is my first experience. And so 2 of them were in my wedding, 2 of the 3. And the third one was my official photographer because I couldn't afford any money. And so get this, in January, the one who was my photographer is coming to visit me in Phoenix. He lives in Chicago. He's in the Chicago Symphony, and they're playing in Mesa. I mean, he called me 2 weeks ago. The other one, Hart, who lives in New Jersey, calls me every 2 weeks. So, I mean, 54 years later. And so I'm in touch with them all the time. The third, Keith, sadly went to be with the Lord a number of years ago. He got cancer. When I heard about it, we stayed in touch. I flew to Lake Charles, Louisiana. I spent 3 days with him. We prayed together. And then I was in touch with him and called up. And his wife answered the phone. He says, Keith's not doing very well. Please talk to him. I talked to him. And the next day he went to be with the Lord. So 2 of them are still living, and 1 has gone to be with the Lord. So, oh yeah, I'm in touch with them quite a bit. You know, did you have a question, brother? Yeah. I know who he is. I don't know him personally. To be honest with you, we're in totally different musical circles. I mean, he's a very wonderful Jewish believer, and he writes music, you know, Jewish sounding for the Lord. But I'm really in classical music. You know, I'm playing with orchestras, and I'm working with people in universities and stuff, and you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I've not met him. I've heard some of his music, but it's not the music it's not my circle of where God has placed me, you know. But he's very gifted, and he knows the Lord, and he writes contemporary Christian music, right? Yeah. Here's a lady here, and then I know a lady back there, and then we'll be done. You know, we have a reception. People have worked hard. There's a lot of sugar in the other room. Yes, ma'am, yes.
What do you recommend we do to develop a taste for quality, beautiful, God-honoring art?
Ooh.
Because I thought you were going to say Philip Glass.
No,
And he's my
I hate
jam.
Philip Glass.
But somebody told me recently, you know, they were talking about the philosophy and how transgressive it is, and I didn't hear it. So what do I need to do to improve my ability to discern beautiful art?
Well, I'll tell you very simply. Go and hear great music. Once a year, go and hear the Phoenix Symphony. It's a wonderful orchestra. I mean, you know, try to find a program that there's not something contemporary that you never heard of. You know, I mean, you know, because it's not going to be pleasant. You know, no. But I'm saying, go get some recordings of great music. Listen to it. You'll be able to discern. You'll be able to know. You know, I mean, just expose yourself to good music and hear concerts and things like this. You know. Go to YouTube. YouTube has 1 million concerts, millions of concerts. You give me a name and
okay.
Go ahead.
What makes it great? Because you play classical music. What makes it great is not how old it is.
No.
What makes it great?
What makes it great is that it has the power of expressing emotions of the human soul that you can't put into words. It moves you. It uplifts you. You know, when I hear a piece by Beethoven and it's sad, I say, that's exactly how I feel when I feel sad. I feel it, but Beethoven has expressed it for me. You see what I'm saying? And you'll begin to identify. My daughter, who's a lawyer, listens to classical music every evening to try to wash herself, you know, as a lawyer, you know. I get cleansed listening to good music. And she writes me, she heard this piece. And then I told her about, oh, listen to this piece. And she wrote me back 2 days ago, oh, Dad, thanks for this piece. I had no idea. It's a choir piece. I'm not always interested in, but it was so beautiful. You see what I'm saying? You acquire a taste of what moves you. That's why I tell people, the best thing you can do for your children is take them to a concert. Take them to a concert. Have them see it. This person playing and the hours they spend. And wow, that music. Wow, I want to play my little piece like that. It's 18 notes, but wow, look what yeah. You expose yourself to quality art that's good and sound. That which is noble, that which is good. That's what, as the Bible says, as Paul says. Dwell on those things. Think upon those things, My wife and I pray before we go to a concert. Thank you, Lord, for Beethoven. Thank you for the gift. Thank you for those musicians. Thank you that we have ears to hear it. Thank you, Lord. You see? Christ-centered. And I think the lady in the very back, and then we'll be done, in the very back. Thank you, Pastor. He's the true servant. He's going around as the mic man. And then we'll be done. And then I know they're going to take an offering, and then there's a reception. Yes, ma'am.
Have you played in Ecuador? And what kind of institutions do you play in? And what was the response to your testimony?
Yeah.
I have not.
Yes.
It's a Catholic
go ahead.
country
Yeah.
usually.
Yeah. The response, I have not played in Ecuador.
Oh,
I know
okay.
you're from Ecuador. We talked when I was here years ago. I've played a lot in the southern part of I've played a lot in Brazil. 5 times in Brazil. I played many concerts in Brazil, Argentina, many concerts, and Chile, and Venezuela, before it became politically difficult to get there. So that's why I said, I have not played in Ecuador. So I'm just saying, not that I wouldn't or anything, but my response is, those countries are very Catholic. Very Catholic. And let me say this. It's interesting because people have told me in going to those countries, your testimony is very powerful because Catholics can be religious and they can be moral, but not changed. You see, I was religious. I was moral. I went to the synagogue. Oh, we go to the church. I was moral. I'm moral. But not here. The church cannot change you. You need Jesus Christ. You need a personal. You see what I'm saying? So I've seen some good results of going, especially in Brazil, São Paulo, where I had a lot of concerts, and many people came, and they're not believers. And I tell them, religion, you can't be changed. You cannot change yourself. So I hope that helps. Let me just mention I have a table in the back. I have 4 recordings. One is all Beethoven. That's my favorite recording. 5 major works by Beethoven. It has the Moonlight Sonata, the Pathétique. These are monumental works. It was almost nominated for a Grammy in 2004 when I recorded it 20 years ago, because I heard from the Grammy Association. I also have a recording of Debussy. It has a famous piece, Clair de Lune. You listen to Debussy and all the stress goes out of you. Your wife will be a puddle of water in the living room. Then there's a recording of 6 composers, Mozart, Beethoven, Schubert, Chopin, Debussy, Rachmaninoff. Some of the pieces I played tonight is on that recording, the variety. Then there's a DVD of my whole testimony. So it's a DVD. It's a movie. It's a documentary. You watch it on TV, done by Jews for Jesus. I play on it, but I mostly speak my whole it's what you heard tonight. Then, many years ago, a lady in Washington State heard me give a concert. She owned a publishing company. She still owns a publishing company. She publishes books of the Bible, not the whole Bible. And she was blessed by my testimony, and she has published the Gospel of John, that's what brought me to Christ, with the Christian testimony of Sam Rotman. She got 8 recordings of my testimony from 8 different concerts and put them, it is the most accurate testimony I've ever seen. They are free. She has sent me, she's probably published 30,000, 40,000. She mails them to me. She mails them to concerts around the country, and she never has charged me a dime. And she says, this is free. So if you'd like a copy of my testimony, they're free. There's 100 books out there. I have more in my car. If you have a friend that needs this, if you have a Bible study you want to pass out, take whatever you want. The books are free. The CDs and DVD are $15. I have to pay royalties, so they're $15, no tax, but the autograph is free. And I always say this. 20 years ago, I gave a concert in Green Valley, Arizona. I said, tonight, the autograph is $15 and the CD is free. And a man came up to me and said, I'd like a CD with no autograph. That's a true story. I am not making that up. I will not tell you what I said to him. So, wow, what a great group. Thank you I hope it was a blessing. I hope the story. God bless you, Pastor. Come on up here. Come on up. Come on.
Well, if you would like to express your appreciation to Sam, we're going to pass the plate, and any cash you put in there goes directly to Sam. And if you want to write a check, don't write the check to Sovereign Grace Bible Church. Write the check to Sam Rotman. So, and he's going to play for us one more time as our young men, I don't see him, I think, as our young men pass the plate here. And we're going to have some light refreshments in the building just north of us. And when you go to that building, go out the east door to get to the building. Because if you go out the west door, you'll get to the parking lot, but you might have trouble getting back in. So, but if you're going over to the other building, go out the east door, and go out the east door if you're going to the other building. Okay.
Thank you. I think they're almost finishing there in the back. So hope it was a blessing. I'll be at my table in the back, and then I'll come over to the fellowship hall. So as the pastor would say, you are dismissed, right? No.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
go ahead.
you are dismissed. And if you don't know where the restrooms are, by the way, they're outside of this building, just a little bit east. You know, we need 6 men to bring the piano down. 6 men to move the piano one more time.